next week so that you can share with the rest of your team. For the sake of just so there's a large group on the call, I'm going to keep everyone muted while UD shares their introduction. Once they are finished, I will then open the line and take everyone off of mute. Just please be mindful that if you need to put us on hold, if you have hold music, if you could hang up and then call back in when you're done, or if people are coming in and out of your office, that you mute yourself so that we don't hear the background noise. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I'm going to unmute the UD team, and we can get started. So the first portion is just going to be the team explaining the program, and then we will open it up for any questions that you all have. So, John, you should be able to have audio. Is there anyone else that I need to unmute?
No, we're all together in the same room, so as long as you can hear me, I think we're good.
We're good. All you now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Shauna, and thank you for pulling this group together, and thank you all for taking the time out to be on this call today. So I just wanted to introduce the UD team quickly, and then what I wanted to do was share a little bit about our thinking as we went through the design process for this program, tell you a little bit about the model, try and address some of the questions that I know have been coming up, and then, as Shauna said, we'll leave plenty of time for questions a little bit later on. So with me, I have two folks from the University of Delaware. Matt Trevitt-Smith is sitting to my right. You can't tell that. He just waved. His video is up there. Matt is the director of our Center for the Teaching and Assessment of Learning, and he's going to be the one working intensely with our faculty doing instructional design of courses for this particular model. And then sitting at my left, who you can't probably see, is George Irvine. George is the Associate Vice Provost for Professional and Continuing Studies. That's the group that is going to manage all of the infrastructure in terms of getting students registered. When you look at the website, that's George and his team that put together that website. They're going to be doing a lot of the handling of having students be part of the University of Delaware. The other person that I wanted to mention that is out of town today is Lynn Okagaki. Lynn is our Deputy Provost. She's the other point person for this. And I realized I didn't introduce myself. So if you don't know me, my name is John Palesko. I'm Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences here at UD. And as these courses and this effort overlaps very strongly with College of Arts and Sciences, I'm one of the point people from UD on this overall effort. So let me, as I said, start out by giving you a brief overview of our thinking and how we kind of went through the process to come up with a design of this particular program, what we were trying to address here. So the first thing I'll say is that this is something that we have heard from superintendents, from principals, from curriculum supervisors, from districts. The question we've heard for a long time is, can UD expand their impact in dual enrollment? And I think a large part of the design of this program was motivated by that, by hearing that from districts across the state. And that set us off to thinking, how could we do this? How could we do this in a way that had broad impact across the state? So we really set out to design a program that had a couple of key characteristics. And the first one was that extended opportunities for dual enrollment with the University of Delaware statewide. We wanted to make sure that we made this as accessible as possible to every high school throughout the state. So broad accessibility was one of our key core design principles. At the same time, of course, for us to be able to do this, it had to be done in a way that was scalable, was cost efficient, was something that we could just simply manage financially. So that was another key design constraint. How did we do it in a scalable, cost efficient way? The third key thing that we wanted to address was we know with dual enrollment locally, we know with dual enrollment nationally, that what happens very often is the costs of dual enrollment get passed to the districts, and then those costs often get passed on to the students. And what you see happening nationally is the poorer a district is, the more likely they are to pass those costs on to the students. And the poorer a district is, the more likely it is that those students are financially unable to bear those costs. And so you see a lot of uneven take-up of dual enrollment across the country, and we wanted to try and create a program that avoided that. So one of our core design principles was being able to do this in a way that was cost efficient and scalable enough to allow us to make this program free for any high school student in the state of Delaware. So we're hoping to be able to improve access, improve affordability, and really sort of attack that concern head on. Same time, we wanted to be able to offer a broad array of courses that gave students, different pathways into college. We didn't want to have it constrained to one major or one particular career path that students wanted to follow, but we wanted to tackle a range of courses that any student would likely be able to engage with and use towards their college career, no matter what it is that they ended up wanting to do. And then the final design principle that we had was, as far as possible, we wanted to make this a true college experience. And in particular, we wanted to make sure that we had the same pace and rigor of a traditional college class for this dual enrollment class. So we did not want to take specifically, we didn't want to do things like take a course that would be a one-semester course and extend it out to be over the full academic year. We wanted students to understand the actual pace and rigor, and at the same time be side by side with students that were already in college and be able to engage with those students. So that was the set of design principles that we had as we put this program together. And I think you all have some sense of the model that we have come up with that we think hits these various design principles. But let me take you through it a little bit. So the first key point is that the program is free to any students. We will not be charging tuition or fees to any student that wants to register for one of these classes through one of your institutions. There'll be no registration fees, no fees of any kind. At the same time, we're working with our faculty so that the courses that we do offer, insofar as is possible, use open courseware resources. So that hopefully there'll be no textbook costs associated with the majority of our courses. So we're trying to keep the cost to the student to be absolutely zero. The idea here is that we want to engage our best faculty with the students in these classes. So the model is that we are identifying our best, most engaging faculty who are teaching courses that would be appropriate to serve as a dual enrollment class, have them teach that class here on main campus to a normal group of UD students that they would be teaching to anyway, and at the same time simulcast that course to your institutions by leveraging technology, so that your students are sitting, essentially virtually sitting in the classroom alongside regular UD students and hearing from and interacting with, via technology, the best UD faculty members, at the same time keeping it the regular pace and the regular rigor of a college class. We'll be using a learning management system to facilitate some of this, as well as Zoom technology to facilitate the simulcast part of this. What we're asking from the schools is that they identify a cooperating professional. Now, this need not be a teacher, could be a paraprofessional, whatever works for the school. What we're asking that individual to do is basically to be there in the classroom with the students while they're taking the course. We're not asking them to be content experts. We're really asking them to be there to help facilitate the student's experience. We will be providing a 2-day training for whoever the cooperating professional is later in the summer. Make sure they understand the entire model, make sure they understand the technology, and we're asking that the schools support that part of the effort. That training will be held here on main campus. We have recognized that the number one challenge that we're likely to face with this model is the scheduling challenge. To make this affordable and doable from our side and to have the real classroom experience for our students, we are constrained by our schedule. So those of you that have applied already, what you see is a selection of different course offering times, trying to identify what would work best with the majority of places throughout the state. But this is something that we're going to have to work our way through. We're going to have to figure out together as we go forward what's the optimal way to do this. So we recognize that, and that's something we're trying to pay a lot of attention to. We have identified an initial set of offerings and 5 faculty members that will be participating in the first round of this. We have Alan Fox, who will be teaching an introduction to philosophy class. Lydia Timmons will be doing a class in communications and media. Veronique Petit, who will be doing a course in Introduction to Astronomy, Callie Keneal, who will be doing a course in Food for Thought, Introduction to Food Science, and what was the fifth one? Victor Perez, who will be doing a course an introductory course in sociology. As you probably saw from some of the news stories, we have an application that's up. The deadline for that application is February 14th. We tried to do this quickly because we understand that you're getting your schedules together. So we wanted to have an early deadline and then be able to come back out and notify whether or not we'll be able to have your school participate in the first round within a week of that deadline. In future years, so in particular in the fall, we'll start an application process much earlier, give us more time to have conversations. But for this particular round, it's a little bit early. As I mentioned earlier, Matt Trevitt-Smith, who's one of the video blocks you can see up there, Matt will be working with our faculty this summer. They'll be teaching the same content, the same courses they will offer to our students, but they're being designed to work in this format. And that's Matt's area of specialty and his team's area of specialty, so they'll be working on that. Otherwise, I mentioned 2 days of training for professionals. I know Shauna did send a couple of key questions here to make sure I hit on these. So she said one of the key questions that's come from the group has been a question about the requirements for students to participate in the class. On the website and in the news articles that have appeared about this, you'll see that these are suggested guidelines. At the end of the day, the responsibility for recommending a student for this class or not is yours. It's up to you whether you think a student is capable of taking and succeeding in this class. We've given guidelines as to what we think a typical profile of a student who can and would be successful looks like, but you know your students better than we do. So it's not a rigid rule, it's a guideline for you to follow. In terms of expectations for the teacher or the cooperating professional, I think I've kind of already hit on them. I'll emphasize again that one of the goals is to have them all here on campus for 2 days to make sure they're completely up to speed on the technology, how the class is going to work, what their roles and responsibilities will be. And then I've already talked a little bit about the scheduling issue, which I see here. And then the final question that Shauna had sent along is, what is the selection criteria for schools and districts when the application is reviewed? For this first round, what we're trying to do is get as broad participation across the state from a wide variety of schools as we possibly can, while also working within the constraints of course schedule. That's going to be how we're going to look at them. Our ultimate goal is to make this accessible to any school. In this first round, we're simply going to try and maximize participation, in particular paying attention to doing it across the state. So I'll stop talking there, and I'd be happy to open it up for questions. And again, thank you for being here and being interested in this program.
Hi, this is Shauna. I'm going to unmute in a moment, but we did have one question or two in the chat box that I'm going to pose first. I apologize, there's some background noise coming from somewhere. So, John, if you can see the questions in the chat box, you can read them as well.
Yeah, I do see the question popping up here in the chat box. The first one I see is a question about how will schools running an AB block schedule work in 50-minute classes? And I think the simple answer to that is I don't know, right? And I think that's part of, as we try and develop this model, these are the types of things that we want to uncover and figure out how to work through. I mentioned earlier that we recognize that scheduling is going to be the most difficult part of this. So that's why we're trying to gather information about what works best for you right now in the application process. And then we're simply going to have to talk and see how we can figure this out and make it work. So I don't have a direct answer to that question. And then I see two other comments. Yeah, I think that's the key question that I see up there. Am I missing anything, Shauna?
No, there was just a comment about hiring. We are now unmuted. I'm going to keep giving my background noise, but others may ask questions.
Okay, so I saw a question just popped up about where do we locate the application, and then what about repeating the courses? I'm going to let George Irvine tell you where to locate the application. I'll come back and do the other question.
Hi, everyone. This is George. How are you today? On the Professional Continuing Studies website of the UD main webpage, the application can be found. That address, maybe I can just type it in. Oh, yeah. All right. Our Center for Teaching and Effectiveness of Learning, who's really good at technology, is going to paste it into the chat, and you'll have the link. You just click on that, you scroll down, and it says how schools can participate is the section. And within that, there's an embedded application form. It's very short. This is not, it's not like the FAFSA or anything like that.
Thank you, George. And so you should have seen in your chat box that link has just popped up, so that's where you could find the application. There's a question to repeat the courses that will be offered, so I'll run through those again. So the first one is an introduction to philosophy class. There's an introduction to sociology class in communications and media, a class in introduction to astronomy, and then a class in called Food for Thought, which is an introductory food science course. So I see a comment that just popped up here. It said, if offered at the same time of day, that will allow us to arrange for one staff member to monitor all students at one time. So we're going to see what works best again for the vast majority of schools. That's one possible solution, and absolutely we'll take that into account as we try and nail down the times of offerings. Will these courses count as general ed courses, or are they electives? Will they be transferable to other institutions in Delaware? So all of the courses that we are choosing and all of the instructors that we're engaging with are teaching classes that are part of our general education curriculum. These are very typical classes that will likely be same class that would count as a gen ed class at not only any other institution in Delaware, but any other institution to which the student might decide to go. For example, a introduction to philosophy class will likely count as a humanities breadth or humanities group requirement for a general education requirement. So again, we're trying not to choose classes that are very hyper-specific for one particular major or lead the students down a single track, but rather students that will generally satisfy general education requirements no matter where they end up going to college.
I just wanted to mention to everyone that we purposefully chose courses that complement AP as opposed to compete with AP. So it's not like AP French or chemistry or similar subjects. That way, the students in your schools don't have to choose to figure out, should I take the one at UD, which is the same as like an AP one? So that was an intentional choice on our part.
And if I could, I have my own video, but I'm sharing John's audio so that I know there's been some comments about the monitors or the paraprofessionals or the instructors that we're asking to supervise. And one of the things that I think feedback would be valuable on is, again, echoing what John's comments were, we really want these to be an engaging as authentic of a learning experience for UD class as possible. And that's a little bit different than an online, kind of purely online course, right? So when the instructor is engaging with those students for UD, there's the expectation that they have to really engage with various sites as well. And when there's in-classroom activities, our idea right now is that there should be in-class activity happening with the understanding that class size at the various sites may vary from site to site, right? Where one site might have 5 students participating where group work would work quite naturally. Another might only have 1 or 2, in which case we would be relying on the technology to facilitate that group interactions. And so the involvement of the individual in the room at least our current thinking would be more than simply observing and making sure that eyeballs are on the screen, but actually perhaps encouraging students to participate actively in any activities that might happen, which is why that 2-day workshop is so important when we're not only going to be introducing the technology, but also some of the pedagogical techniques that might be in place. And our current thinking as well is that there'll be regular check-ins between the University of Delaware, particularly the Center for Teaching and Assessment of Learning, and these folks that are monitoring or facilitating, so that folks are constantly on the same page, know what's coming up, and are prepared to engage folks. And we're also hoping that that could potentially be a value add for the, if it's paraprofessionals, so that they can get a little bit of professional development through the University of Delaware as well at no charge, right, and through our center. So that's what feedback would be helpful on, how we can help support those folks with
Thank you, Matt. I think I see a couple other questions here. Will the live courses, all 5, run during the same semesters or staggered throughout the year, fall and spring semesters only? So our goal is to offer 5 classes each academic year, either 3 in the fall and 2 in the spring, or 2 in the fall and 3 in the spring. So that's how we intend to structure that. Will all grading of assignments and awarding of credits happen through UD? Yes, students will be registered in the class, as a regular UD student. The grading will be handled at UD. Credits, the students will be. George, you want to speak to how the students will be registered here at UD?
Sure. High school students or dual enrollment students are considered continuing education students at the University of Delaware. My division registers them, gets them set up with onto the learning management system, which we use Canvas, gets them registered in UDSIS, which is our student registration system, and helps them ensure that they're in the course that they need to be in, the courses in this program. So there are counselors and advisors whose job is to make that work. We've been doing this for decades. This is exciting because it's free and it's more accessible. And we don't have to worry about the transactional costs of billing either the student or the school. So that's a whole piece of the operations that in this dual enrollment program goes by the wayside. So we really focus on ensuring getting them in the class and ensuring student success. There's withdrawal deadlines as well. So if you in your school feel that a student might be overstretched and not performing and may not do well in the class, they can still withdraw without penalty. So we're ensuring that this doesn't hurt a student if they get in over their head when they apply to UD, for example, down the road. So that's it's not a direct question, but it's something I wanted to make you aware of. One other thing that my colleagues in the Access Center, which is the center within my division that enrolls high school students as dual enrollment students, one of the things they shared with me is that the asynchronous online learning in their experience is challenging to high school kids. So one of the challenges of our model is going synchronized online learning because of the scheduling. But the research and then the experience of my colleagues has shown that high school kids sometimes don't do very well in synchronized or asynchronous online learning. So that was a pedagogical and kind of philosophical choice we made, even though it opens the can of worms of like harmonizing and aligning. Like the variance among your guys' schedules is impressive too. So that's the challenge that we're facing now. But it is more than likely better to face that challenge than to go with asynchronous online learning, given what we know about high school kids struggling in that environment.
And there was a question from Jen Wagner as well about grading assignments. So I'm in stereo. That will happen here at UD. So the instructor and we'll be partnering with a graduate student teaching assistant to handle the grading. So yes, that's handled on the UD side.
Thank you, Matt. Let's see. Is there any limit? Okay, can you go into more detail about the academic assistance? Schools will need to provide for struggling students? Does this mean a teacher with knowledge in the content area? So no, there's no expectation that the cooperating professional is a content area expert. So the supports for the students will be the same supports for any student, any regular college student enrolled in this class. So each of these classes will have a teaching assistant. We expect that most of the interactions with your students will be through the learning management system. And then we intend to discuss ways with the cooperating professionals that they can aid these students, even not necessarily being content experts themselves. Is there a limit to how many sorry, things are scrolling up my screen here. I want to make sure I don't miss any. Is there a limit for how many courses the student can take? No, there's no limitations on our side. And the idea is that a student should be able to, over their junior and senior year, if they're ambitious and they want to, complete 15 full college credits through this program. I assume that the classes would be following the UD calendar schedule. When schedules don't align, would allowances be made for the high school students to miss those classes? This is another one of those that we need to work out as we pick the initial round of schools and try and figure out the scheduling issue. What does a typical class look like? Are students watching the teacher and completing work on Canvas that they will then submit, a hybrid model? I'm going to let Matt talk to that one.
Yeah, so it very much is meant, as to echo what George was saying as well, is that this is meant to be an engaging experience during that class time. So it's not meant to be a passive watching a lecture or watching a series of online modules from the student just sort of sitting. Now, there will likely be some moments of lecture in these classes, of course, but the idea is that they'll be very pedagogically sound and have lots of opportunities to engage with the instructors, students to engage with each other, and the teaching assistant through various activities, polling, quizzing, discussion groups, right? We're trying to mimic as close as possible to that in-classroom experience, even though we have some miles potentially between students. So again, it's meant to be a very engaging classroom environment and not a passive. There likely will be some assignments and assessments done online outside of class as well, as would normally happen in any class here at UD. But again, that in-class time is meant to be as engaging as possible.
Thank you, Matt. Let's see. How many days per week do courses meet within the semester? So in that original poll that we sent you, so our courses here at UD either meet on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule or a Tuesday, Thursday schedule, and then probably much less frequently a one-day a week, like 3-hour block. Well, let's ignore that one for a moment. So the schedule that you, or the application form has options for those two different things. And what we want to try and do is we will schedule our courses here so that they fit with our students' schedules and as many of your students' schedules as possible. So that's why we're asking for your feedback on what works best for you, what is feasible, what isn't feasible from you.
Yeah, but just within that application. Sorry to jump in, John.
Please.
There are 2 rank order questions in the application. So we're just asking you to rank the options. I think there are 8 for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 time slots. And then there are 4 or 5 for Tuesday, Thursday. And we've received applications from high schools already, and it's very useful. And we'll do a rank order kind of sorting analysis and then take a look at how many overlap. Hopefully there's a lot of overlap. That's what our expectation is. But we also anticipate that there will be not overlap.
Right. So I'll take the next one because it's easy. Limit the number of kids per school that can take the course? No. Okay. So that one's easy. And then the next 2, I think I'm going to let Matt address if you can.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I'll read it if folks are phoning in. Will cooperating professionals have access to students' work in Canvas to help support from the instructor side? That's a good question. Our initial thinking was that the assistance would happen from the faculty member and the TA. I don't know. We'd have to look into policies on who can have access to student works and grades and things like that. So I would want to make sure that we're in line with policies and things on that end. And also we want to make sure that we're not limiting the feasibility of that from the host schools, right? We don't want to say, yes, all professionals in the room should expect to do that, because I don't think that all schools would be able to identify somebody that might have that ability to do that. So it's a great question. It's something that I wrote down here so that we can think about when we're designing these courses.
Technologically, though, it is possible to do that.
Yeah.
And in our continuing ed division, we have instructors who are not UD faculty. There are instructors, and give them access, and they can act as. So it is doable. Yeah, but the policy question does matter.
And from our perspective, we weren't envisioning recruiting an army of teaching assistants, right? Which would, if that were the case, that would very much be in line with what this question is insinuating. We were really thinking them as more as facilitators and making sure the students are engaging and breaking out into different activities while that classroom is happening, versus being content experts or graders or advisors or mentors or serving in that capacity, which we would handle from the university side.
Do you want to take the next one too, about how students have access to the professors or TAs?
Oh, during office hours? That's another great question. So something that we'll make sure is accounted for during the office hours, and that the learning experience will be facilitated through our learning management system and Zoom. And so it's very easy to set up Zoom office hours as well. So students could drop in, knowing that schedules and office hours might not align from the faculty to the students. Then we'll make sure that in the learning management system there's opportunities for anonymous feedback to the instructor and TA, as well as various modes of communication back and forth. So if a student has a question, they can ask that through the LMS, either with their name attached or anonymously, so the instructor could comment.
Okay. And George, do you want to take this one here? Access to student work. How they give the high school grade.
Oh yeah. How we give the grade. So when a grade is assigned and it's shared with the high school, there is a process, just so we're abiding by FERPA, the federal, because this is where dual enrollment kids are kind of interesting, because they're not fully adults yet, right? So, but yeah, we have a process. We've been operating that process of sharing grades back, so you guys can determine the high school credit that they get for the course. So it's a well-trodden working process, and we would just have your schools in it. So it's no problem. Any others coming in?
I don't see any other questions yet.
I'll just give you a few more moments to ask your questions. Kelly, thank you.
So I see one question topped up. What's the turnaround time once we submit the application? We're looking to get back to schools to say, who we can accommodate for this initial round within a week of the application deadline, which is February 14th. Course is going to be staggered within the week or all at the same time within the semester. So again, that's something we're still working out. That's part of the analysis that when we get the applications that we want to figure out, again, what works for the most possible number of schools across the state. How soon in advance will we know specifics about the course before the school year? Well in advance. So certainly within this academic semester, so we need to do our course scheduling for the fall early in the academic semester. So by that point in time, we'll be able to tell you specifically the courses, what syllabus will look like, what the course description is. Well in advance of the fall semester.
We'll add that to the website as soon as we have that data. So the website will be a resource to share with those students who more questions in classes.
And then I see, I'm going to take one of these and then I'm going to pass two to George. So I see, have you talked to the chiefs about this? Yes. Lynn Ogagaki, who I mentioned earlier, and I went and spoke with the chiefs. I guess it's about a month or so ago now, before we initially announced the program, both to let them know about it and also to get their feedback. There were several things that they raised. The scheduling issue we talked a lot about. They also raised the question of, originally we had said, we want a cooperating teacher in the classroom. They suggested that it be a cooperating professional, so we made that change. And there were several other parts to that conversation. But yes, we did talk to the chiefs about a month or so ago now. Then there are a couple of questions that popped up here. That one there, George.
C for UD credit. But let me just double check that one based on what you. Yes, a C or better. So that's the answer to that question in terms of achieving credit. The other thing we talked briefly about earlier is the credit transferable to other universities or colleges. It's at the determination of those other universities or colleges, but UD credit as currency within higher ed is very high. So rarely do we or they turn down, but that we can't promise that. We can promise they get credit here at UD, so when they come here, they'll definitely get credit. But if they go someplace else, they have to ask that school. And the next one is there an application for students to enroll to UD to be entered in the program? No. So we have had questions from students directly or from their parents, like, how do I get my student enrolled? We want the student to go to you in the high school, and we have the relationship with you. We don't know the students as well as you do. So that's why we can make the determination at the judgment call. Their academic record in high school makes them a likely candidate to succeed in these courses. And that's what we've told the parents. Like, you know, you need to be in touch with the high school, either the counselor or the principal, or the appropriate point of contact. If those students want to come to UD, then of course they apply to UD. The historical data indicates that more than 50% of dual enrollment students come to UD. So we know this can be a very good pathway for students in Delaware that come to the flagship University of Delaware. And what was the other one? What is included in the student application through continuing studies transcript? No, we don't have that. Again, it's if in your judgment the student's transcript at high school prepares them adequately, we're taking your word for it. We do have an agreement with you, and that would be, it's a very short 2-page agreement saying this is what we'll do, this is what you'll do. SAT scores, again, you know your students best. So if your student has the ballpark SAT scores and a record of success in rigorous courses like maybe IB or AP or even others that your school may have, that's good enough for us. And this is based on our experience. It's not like we're just kind of saying, oh, it'll work. It has worked, for decades. When we've worked with high schools, this is a good relationship.
I see a couple more comments about the Chiefs discussion on this. I see Chiefs discussed this again yesterday during our February meeting. We need to see the actual schedule, which makes perfect sense. We're trying to turn this around within 7 days of having the application. I will say that the more applications that we have, the better we can try and optimize the timing and the scheduling of these. But we do understand that before you roll this out to families, of course, we need to nail that information down. And I do see the comment about the time. Yes, so this last question that just popped up, so the student only has to meet their own school's requirement to complete no application at UD. That is correct. So we have told you what our recommended guidelines are for the students. But again, it's your students best. So it's really in you exercising your judgment about whether or not a student is ready to complete a rigorous college class on the same schedule of any other college class. But we want you to make that decision locally.
There is what's called a quick bio form, and it's a link. It's already on the website, so it's udel.edu // I get this messed up. Anyway, quick bio, and that's what the student will complete. That allows us to get the data we need to register them. It's a very straightforward short form. It's not as complicated as you think.
It's not an application. It's just the information we need to register them in the system and give them a grade. Thank you, Pat. Nice comment there. George, do you want to take this on my student failing in class?
Oh, there is a process at UD, and it has a really good, cute name, but I can't remember the name. It's like a pet's name or something. But it's a way for the student to expunge a failing grade from a dual enrollment course, so it doesn't hamper their permanent record at UD. UD has that process. Other universities may not. So this is why it's important for you guys to do the due diligence to make sure that the student is you think is going to succeed. But also, if the student isn't in the first couple of weeks of the class, they have the opportunity to withdraw from the course, and it doesn't show up as such a withdrawal would not negatively impact their UD transcript should they come to UD. That section of the website is called course or changes in course registration status. So you can see the different bullet points and variables that are starting to come up.
It's been talking about.
So I see a question from Shauna. Who's the main point of contact for questions after today?
The easiest point of contact, my colleague Michelle Parnell. Her email is at the bottom. It's M Parnell, and that's spelled P-A-R-N-E-L-L. So again, M as in Mary, Parnell, at Adele. If she doesn't have, as we know, working out like the schedule, Michelle comes to me, then or John, and so that's how we get feedback from interested schools and their families, and also make sure Michelle has the answers to the questions that are coming up.
It's a question that just popped up. If courses are held after school hours, certain districts will be responsible for paying the cooperating professional. Yes. So the only expenses that we're asking the schools to bear is providing that cooperating professional.
The IT requirements for the schools are listed on the website, and I would just draw your attention to that section, because most of the IT we've been told you have internet activity, internet access. Many high schools I know have given laptops or Chromebooks or whatever they call it to students, but it's a pretty light technical lift. It's not like you need a dedicated classroom with ITV. If you had that, we could probably make that work. But that's one thing I wanted to make you aware of, that is listed on our website. Another point that may come up in your conversations with families or students is that dual enrollment students are expected to abide by the Code of Conduct at the University of Delaware. That Code of Conduct, a link to it is on the website. Sometimes the students, in our experience, it's a different style of Code of Conduct. It's a collegiate Code of Conduct. So it's important to review that. We haven't had many issues, to be honest. The kids are great. They're motivated to learn. They really want to expand what they can learn while they're in high school and then decrease the cost of going to college eventually. It's just I wanted to make you aware of that since this hasn't come up yet.
So would academic integrity issues be handled using UD code versus school code? Yes, that speaks to George's last point there. The expectation is they're following UD's code of conduct for this particular courses?
You could still hold them accountable, of course, to your code of conduct, and this is what's interesting. They're also giving credit to them. So that's why it's important. Our code of conduct. They're hopefully aware of your code of conduct already. One other facet which has not come up, but I've learned about it in the last couple of weeks since we launched this program, is that this can be a marketing tool for your school. So it's like a magnet. When you talk to prospective parents in the choice systems, and we have this arrangement with UD. Some of the private schools are made me aware of this, and that was an interesting thing I wanted to share with you guys.
Oh my God, that's
All right, we will remain on the line for a couple more minutes to just monitor for questions. But if you feel like you've gotten your answers, this is the remaining portion of the call, so we can wrap up. We will post this online, and I'll send an email out to let everyone know where it's online and how you can access it. Thank you all for your questions.
Thank you, Shauna, for arranging this and making this time, everybody.
John, did you see the question from Kelly about testing and assessment?
Oh, no, sorry, I missed that one. Matt, do you want to take that?
Yeah, so the testing will be integrating and leveraging the learning management system. That's the quick and easy answer.
All right, I think that is probably it for today. So I'm going to wrap up the recording, but UD team, you feel free to exit. Thank you all for making time this afternoon.
Thank you, Shauna. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.